see you from across the room. It's kinda crowded here, but I know you see me too. Everybody's singing, oh, everybody's singing, oh. I don't know what it is about you. It must be in the way you move. Just say you want me to. We've got nothing to lose. You're looking so old. You're looking so old.
Good morning. I'm back home in my own apartment. It's kind of strange being back here, but I'm really, really happy to be home. It was kind of one of those trips where everything just went so well and there were so many nice little moments. But once it came to the last night, Jazz and I were just really ready to pack up our stuff, get back home and kind of just get back into routine. I had a lot of work things that were sort of piling up and it just felt like a really natural, good ending to the trip, sort of seeing my family and then heading back. So hello again from home and straight back into the thick of things. I've been doing loads of washing and unpacking my bag. I've got to take the suitcase down to the storage cage, all of those little sort of unfun sides where you just need to do a massive big reset and overhaul. But I hope you guys really enjoyed seeing a couple of the travel vlogs and the places we went. And I might touch on that a little bit more at the end of the video because I don't want to bore anyone who doesn't want travel content if you're not sort of going anywhere for a little while. But some of you did ask me questions about the costs of some things, so I thought I might just pop it in the end and I can do a little bit of a breakdown of like where we stayed, what the kind of average daily costs were for things like taxis, hotels, food, all of that kind of stuff, just to give you a little bit of a better idea. But today I really just need to have a massively productive day and get well and truly back on top of things. But I do actually have to update you on something which is a little bit of an unfortunate end to the trip. And if you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen this, and I'm just getting myself comfortable again because I actually have a very sore foot at the moment and I do think that it might be fractured. I'm confident that it's not broken, but basically what happened was Jazz and I were picking up a rental car and we got an Uber to the Budget Direct place, whatever it's called, to go and pick up the car. And he was sitting on the other side, obviously, so he got out and shut his door. And as I kind of got out, you know how you like turn around to close your door? Well, my foot was in the perfect position underneath the guy's tire. And before I even had a chance to shut the car door, he started driving off and he drove directly onto my left foot. So as you can imagine, it was a pretty traumatic moment and it's definitely not even funny thinking about it now because it was so unbelievably painful. I was basically just screaming and I didn't even have like the mental capacity to say like, you're on my foot. So poor Jazz, thankfully he quickly realized what was going on and told the guy to reverse, because I feel like had he kept going forwards, like he was already kind of stationary at this point on top of my foot and not doing anything, which was sort of really escalating the situation because the full weight of the car was like bearing down on my foot. So anyway, finally he got it off and I was just sitting on the ground crying. It was really not a good time and I was very worried. So we sort of got my shoe off, got me home immediately back to the hotel and sort of iced it and put some compression bandages on it. And yeah, it was not really the most ideal thing to happen, but we were really confident it wasn't broken and I just didn't want to have to go through like the American medical system and sort of bother everyone with that. So I thought, you know what, if I can just strap it up and deal with it, I will get an x-ray when I get home. So that is where I'm going this morning. I am prepped and ready and I'm just going to head off down to an x-ray place. I've had a doctor's appointment yesterday and I got a referral. So it was as quick as I could possibly get it done, but fingers crossed it's nothing bad because I would love to just get back into the gym and training, but it would definitely be the worst thing for me if I were like doing box jumps and jumping around and being complete nutcase like I normally do if it is damaged in some way, because I know I've had a stress fracture in my knee from skiing like a million years ago. And if you've ever had that, you would know that you are really meant to sort of take it easy for a few weeks so everything can heal. So it's nothing serious, but it is still quite painful. And that is why I did the x-ray, because it's sort of worrying me that something is not quite right in there. But anyway, that was not on my bingo card for 2023 to have my bloody foot run over by an Uber driver. So rest assured, it's all going to be covered by their insurance if there is any problems. But moving on, I am going to go and do that. And then I need to run a couple of errands. Like I want to go out and get a pedicure because I had these red nails, which amazingly lasted for the entire trip. I was so impressed. This is that builder in a bottle stuff. And It genuinely lasts for like 4 to 5 weeks without getting damaged, but my toes are red and I am finished with that now. I just want to go back to my neutral nude colors. So I'm going to go out and do the x-ray, go to the post office, pick up some parcels and stuff, and then I will treat myself to a little bit of a pedicure. And then I need to come back here and hang up a giant pile of clothing and just go through a couple more things around home to really reset the space. So I will see you guys soon. I actually didn't go too crazy on buying any souvenirs on this trip because I just wanted to get things that are actually meaningful. I sort of walked past a couple of souvenir stores and I thought they're kind of a thing of the past because we're definitely less wasteful as a society these days, so I don't think we really want to buy junk anymore. So this one I actually think might be my favorite little find. I got this over in Brooklyn and it was from this beautiful little store, and it's a little vintage looking tape measure, and it's just a 2-meter one, but I thought this would be absolutely perfect for me to keep in my handbag if I'm ever at a client meeting and I need to kind of show someone something or measure something really quickly that's not an entire room. So I just absolutely loved that. And from the same store I got this really cute little pen. They had a whole bunch of them in different colors, but I just thought this was absolutely perfect, and it's a really fine writing pen, so it's really nice, and again quite tiny, so I can just pop it into my handbag. Next thing I got was actually from the little general store at our accommodation in Yosemite, and it was this beautiful leather key ring, and I just think this is so cool. I've already popped it on my keys because I'm in love with it, and it's just such a nice reminder of a really beautiful place that I enjoyed going to. Last thing I got was this little vintage looking national parks notebook, and it's just a super tiny one, I think like A5 size. So Yosemite is the one we went to, and then these are all of the other incredible national parks around. I actually have been to the Grand Canyon on a trip to America a million years ago. I did Las Vegas, and of course the Grand Canyon is right there, but it kind of just inspired me to tick off some more of these. Yellowstone, the park in Utah. There's so many beautiful national parks in America to discover, so I'm super keen to see a little bit more next time I get over there. One thing I did want to update you guys on after traveling, because I never really want to review a product until I've had a really good chance to test it out. So it's this, which is the jumper backpack from a brand called Brevity, and this is actually what I took as my carry-on bag, and the reason for that is that it's a camera backpack, so it actually had so many different features that were really helpful for me to take on this trip, being a vlogger and someone who's also working, because now when I go on holidays it's not as simple as just having a really easy carry-on with a couple of clothes. I also have to consider my camera, which needs proper protection, and also my laptop. So this bag was absolutely perfect for that, and I really like the color I got as well. This one is juniper pine green, so I thought I would just tell you a couple of the features in case you're someone who is a little bit of a keen photographer as well and you're looking for something you can take away, which means you don't also have to bring a separate camera bag as well. This bag was so great for everyday use. The shoulder straps are really padded, so it was extremely comfortable when I had to carry it around, and it also has a top compartment which fit an extra set of clothes in the top, and that's really handy for me on the plane because I'm someone who likes to take a totally different outfit, so I can kind of wear comfy things but change into something else appropriate to the climate on the other end. It also has a padded laptop sleeve, which is a completely separate compartment, and that fits up to a 16-inch MacBook, and I only have the 14-inch one, so it actually had a little bit of room in there where I could still put in the chargers and a couple of other things as well. It also has a side access pocket, which is a quick one so that you can grab out the camera and never miss a shot, and there is also a secure passport pocket for peace of mind, which is really important for someone like me because I do get very stressed if I can't find my passport or I can't remember where I've left it. So having a really dedicated location where I know it's always going to be really put my mind at ease this trip. Oh, sorry, I'm still trying to beat the jet lag. I feel pretty tired still, but I've been managing to kind of sleep through relatively okay. I feel like I kind of wake up once or so during the night and just have a like, where am I kind of feeling, but I'm pretty much back on top of it, and that pedicure was heaven after all of the walking we were doing, which was kind of the majority of our holiday. But I've just picked up this box, which I think is a subscription service I've got. It's from Bella Box called Welcome to Wellness, and every quarter I think they send you a box with like a whole bunch of different food and like wellness kind of samples. So thought I might open that up. Yes, it is. It's very cutely packaged and it's got a whole bunch of things in here, but what I like about it is just the fact that everything is full size, so you can actually try stuff. These are going to disappear within about 5 seconds. It's those Harvest Pea Snap. These are just a sea salt flavor, but I actually really like the salt and vinegar ones. So yum, definitely into those. Didn't need to promote them to me. I've also got 2 Naked Life non-alcoholic cocktails. There's a Pink Paloma, which I have no idea what that is, and Passion Fruit Martini. I love these for whenever I'm going to parties and I just don't feel like drinking. I'll take these. They're really tasty and it feels like you're still kind of getting in the party spirit without anyone knowing that you're not drinking. So love those. I've also got a Bior Daily Detox cannabis seed oil and green tea exfoliator, which would be really nice. I love exfoliating in the shower. That is one of my favorite things. This is, okay, these are some organic cotton tampons from a brand called Clever Little. There's also SkinCeuticals, which is such a great brand. This says blemish and age defense, and it says it's a potent treatment for anti-aging and imperfections. And let me tell you, I definitely need this after my holiday because my pigmentation on my forehead is out in full force. Even though I was using SPF 50 the entire time, it's just like come back with a vengeance. So apparently what I have is called melasma, and it can be related to like hormonal changes and things as well. So I don't necessarily think it can be entirely lifted because it will sort of come back with those fluctuations, but using pigmentation creams definitely makes a huge difference. So definitely want to get back into that. This one is from AP Skin. It's called an apple a day skin remedy, and this one's kind of interesting. It says it's for skin integrity, collagen, acne symptoms, and pimples. They're little chewable tablets apparently. That'll be kind of interesting. I love apple flavored stuff as well. You know, I remember there used to be this really cheap shampoo and conditioner. I'm not going to be able to open this on camera. And it was like apple scented, and I used to love that. It is so nice. There's also this from, ooh, this is from Lush. I've actually never bought anything from Lush. They have one at the Chadstone near me. It's called the Olive Branch Shower Gels. So super keen to try that. Their store sort of puts me off though because it is so overly scented, but that'll be really nice to try something from them. And the last thing in here is this, which is So Well Chamomile. So it says calm and relax oral liquid. I actually have a similar pine needle tincture, which is like something you put under your tongue. So I think this will be kind of similar, and chamomile puts me out like a light. I was having chamomile teas when I was overseas, and they are unbelievably good if you're someone who is not kind of getting to sleep, because I don't know what is in that flower, but it just sends me right off. So that's all of that. And now I think I might make some lunch because I'm actually really hungry. I'm on coffee number 2 to make sure I can beat this jet lag once and for all. And I'm actually going to head off to the infrared sauna after this because I did a workout this morning just doing some weights and stuff like that, but I thought it might be really nice to just do a little bit of a detox and get back into my sauna routine. So that is something I have been doing pretty much all up until the trip, and then I want to get back into it now. But I actually do get eyelash extensions done sometimes, and I don't have them on at the moment, but when I do have them on, I try not to go in the infrared sauna because I feel like the steam actually makes them come off quicker. So it's a little bit unfortunate because if you're kind of timing to want to be able to do some of those health things, then sometimes the little beauty things fall by the wayside. So first world problem, obviously, but it's just something that I had to keep in mind because I was spending all this money to get those done. done so that I'd kind of look ready for all of my content stuff. But then I realized it was a complete waste of money when I want to get really sweaty at the gym or do all of my saunas and stuff. So I'm taking a little bit of a break from that, and then I'm just going to be doing a real big health and detox kind of overhaul after being away, because although we didn't have any massive nights or like big days out or anything, especially because Jazz doesn't really drink at all, and then I just don't really drink that much these days, we literally probably just had like one drink a day if we were like at a dinner or at a sunset or up at a bar or something like that. And even at the wedding in Mexico, I literally had 2 margaritas and then I just had soda water. So it really wasn't one of those kind of holidays, but I do feel like unless you're kind of working out every day or maintaining your usual routine in terms of like food and stuff, then you can just feel a little bit blah. So I'm definitely feeling a little bit down on my energy levels. So I'm probably going to do maybe like another healthy grocery haul where I'm just sort of getting back into healthy summer salads and some smoothies and stuff like that to just make me feel like myself again. But I did promise I would sit down and talk about the trip in a little bit more detail for anyone who's interested. So I will start off with the first destination we went to. So we flew Qantas, and they actually had a sale on, which was amazing because when I was initially looking at the flights, it was 2,200 return on Virgin Australia. And then Qantas was, I think, about the same, maybe like 2-3. And then randomly, Jazz and I were looking, and he's a very like go with the flow person, and I am the complete opposite. I'm the planner in the relationship. I had a Notion template for all of the things. I pre-packed and I did all of those bits and pieces, whereas he'll just kind of be like, yeah, whatever, like we could book the flight next week. And that is just not my financial position, let alone my mental position on organizing a holiday. So I ended up looking and I said, let's just book it this weekend. And it just so turned out that Qantas had a sale, so it was $13.50 return, which I feel like is unheard of from Melbourne to LA. So that was an amazing saving on our flights, and just very, very lucky that they were doing that North America sale. And so the first destination we landed in, well, basically what we did was we went from Melbourne to LA, and then my preference would just always be to travel straight through. But Jazz's friends that we were staying with had kind of already booked these flights and the dates didn't align, and it was just like a whole thing. So we decided to spend a night in LA instead. So I booked Delilah, which is the most beautiful bar. I have no photos or footage because it's a bit of a celebrity hangout. So I think like Drake and Justin Bieber and a few people normally go there, so they don't let you do any photos in there. But let me just tell you, if you're in LA, book yourself a table at Delilah. I booked it months in advance before us going there because it was kind of like a little birthday thing for me, and it was incredible. Really great atmosphere, food, beautiful, beautiful place. It kind of has like a 1950s parlor sort of feel, but then it's like a restaurant and cocktail bar, and then it turns into a club later on. So you could honestly spend the entire evening there. And then we just stayed in the Hilton Airport Hotel, which had a shuttle bus. So that was kind of the easiest way to get to and from the airport, because the next morning at 11 a.m. we had the flight to Mexico. So we flew into Puerto Vallarta, which was really kind of like a nothing sort of airport. And then I think Puerto Vallarta itself is like a holiday destination, but we ended up going to Punta Mita. So again, not my kind of choice of a travel destination. And when we got there, it was kind of firm in my mind that it was not my kind of place, because it was like families, I would say very wealthy American families is kind of the vibe that was there. It was sort of like a gated estate, which I also don't really enjoy, that sort of separation from the locals. I think it's a little bit contentious, and it does sort of take away from the experience of traveling. And it also makes me wonder why it needs to be gated. Is it like dangerous outside, or is there like some perceived separation of class? So I didn't really like that aspect of Punta Mita, but actually what I didn't like about it the most was just it was totally boring. So we had a beautiful, beautiful Airbnb that Jazz had organized, and that was fantastic. We had so much room to spread out. It was 3 bedrooms, I think, in total, which we only used 2 of them. And then it had a massive living area and backyard. And then the estate that it was in itself, we had like little golf buggy, and we were kind of driving around there. But that accommodation was quite expensive. And one thing I do wish we did was get a private chef, which they did offer us, but we said no because we thought we'd just go out and get food. And then every time we went out and got food, it was very expensive and pretty average. And I think that the chef just would have done a better job. So that would be my hot tip if you wanted to travel there with your family. Just like go all in for the experience at your accommodation and don't bother about kind of going out, because the actual main street of Punta Mita itself was like not much. Like, you sort of went there and I was like, oh, is that it? Like, you know, there wasn't really, maybe like 6 or 7 restaurants and a convenience store and a cafe, and that was honestly about it. So I don't really know much about that. There was tons of beach clubs, like there's the Four Seasons, and I think the Four Seasons one was Pacifico, which in my opinion was definitely the best beach club. It was absolutely stunning. There was gorgeous lounges and umbrellas out there, kind of like you would see in Europe, and it was on a beautiful little beach and had a lovely pool, and you can kind of just sit around there all day and get like cocktails or whatever. But again, that's not really my kind of thing, because I just sort of get bored and there's only so many like pages of a book or like relaxing I can do. Like, I'm very bad at that sort of stuff. I kind of like the action side of a holiday where we're doing heaps of stuff. I sort of struggle to just sit still and do nothing. And I totally get that that is kind of the entire point of a holiday. But for me, I like active holidays, and I just know that about myself. So anyway, it was only 3 nights, I think, there. And then, oh, also, I went to a cafe and they charged me 15 Australian dollars for a cappuccino, and I didn't even realize at the time because I was so tired and we didn't have any coffee at our house. So I went out one morning and I went to this cafe and they said, oh yeah, cool, 150 pesos. And so in my brain I was like, whatever, I don't even know what that is, because we'd only been there for one day. And so I just paid it, and then I realized 150 pesos is $15. So 100 pesos was about 10 bucks. And once you do the conversion and you start realizing what things cost, I then realized that Mexico is actually not that cheap anymore. And I think it's just maybe like post-COVID traveling or something like that. But I guess what I really enjoyed about going to some of those countries in the past when I was traveling is that you could really travel well on a budget and stick to your budget, because the food would be really affordable, the transit and the accommodation were affordable, excuse me. And it just really wasn't like that this time. So the following destination we went to was Sayulita, which is stunning, and I would highly recommend Sayulita if you're going to Mexico. It felt very, very safe, and it's kind of just like a little beachside town. I would actually say it's basically a carbon copy of Byron Bay, but in Mexico. So the beach there was absolutely stunning, and actually even in the waves, it's got like little flecks of gold. I think it must be from like seashells or something in the area that are like tumbling around, but it was beautiful. You could walk along the entire beachfront. There was a bunch of beach clubs down on there as well, where you could pay, I think, about 80 Australian dollars, and that would get you all your food and drink for the day. So we ended up doing that at one place, just because I thought it would be easier that we just like sit there and relax, and a lady braided my hair, and it was just like that sort of experience. So I really, really enjoyed that. We went for a swim in the ocean, and the accommodation there was a lot more affordable, but still not super cheap. I think I paid 880 Australian dollars for 3 nights. And it was a really nice place that we stayed at, and it was sort of just up the hill. So it is a very hilly town. So you kind of just need to be careful where you book if you're not sort of into, I guess, walking up hills like this all day, because that's kind of what you end up doing every morning and every evening and multiple times a day. You are just constantly walking up and down, up and down, up and down the hill, and it can get a little bit tiring in the heat. But that being said, we were there in low season, which means it's super humid and hot. So I think if you went around like December or April or something, it would be a lot nicer. My only commentary on Sayulita was that, again, it just wasn't that cheap. So there was a number of really good restaurants we went to, and cafes and things as well. So my favorite cafe there was called Anchor. And then my favorite restaurant there was probably like Mary's or Rustica. So there was definitely plenty of options for really nice food there, but it just, again, it wasn't that cheap. So I was sort of getting a little bit frustrated with that side of things, because I thought that the Mexico part of the trip would be something that we could budget on. But in terms of a beautiful, beautiful place, Sayulita was it. We did the sunset horse ride on our last night, and it was so romantic and so beautiful. I thought that we were actually going to be with a group, but the place that I picked was a small family run business. And when I mean small, it was literally a shack on the side of the road with like the father and son working there, and they had only 7 horses and nobody else had booked for that day. So Jazz and I got the ride to ourselves, and it was just phenomenal. And as the sun set, we were out on the beach riding our horses, and then we went back through the jungle, and because the sun was starting to come down, all these fireflies came out, and honestly, it was just stunning and really, really worth every single cent. So that was a really, really nice experience there. And the food was super healthy. It was easy to find a gym, all of that kind of stuff. So, oh, and total expat community as well. I feel like a lot of people just go there to live, similar to Byron Bay. So yeah, I couldn't complain about Sayulita at all. I loved it. And then from there, we went to Ajijic, which is where the wedding was. So it's on a place called Lake Chapala, and that's kind of in the middle of nowhere in a way. We sort of, I think, had to get like a 4-hour bus or something like that from Sayulita. So it felt very far. And on the way back, is that what we did? No, we went to Guadalajara for one night, which was the 4-hour bus. And we stayed in a hotel called Casa Habitat, which was unreal. I found it on Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the travel website, and it was really, really beautiful, super modern, definitely not the cheapest either, but it was really centrally located. And that was just what we ended up doing. So we met the bride and groom, they came up from their town, and then we got a car to Ajijic, which was, I think, 1 hour. So the bus ride, I can't remember how much it cost, but it was like a 5-star coach. Like, when I tell you this was the most beautiful bus I've ever been on, lift your expectations, because it had reclining seats, aircon, TV. It was kind of like being in business class on a plane, but on a bus. So I was really, really pleasantly surprised by that. It was super comfortable, and the bus was practically empty as well. So it all felt very safe and a very easy way to get from A to B. And then, yeah, in terms of getting a driver from Guadalajara to Ajijic, I had got an Uber the night before, and then I just asked the Uber driver if he would be keen to drive us, because it would have been quite a decent fare for him, and he agreed. So I just got his mobile number, and then he came back and got us. So I know they're obviously not supposed to do that, but in terms of like someone really nice who could be a reliable driver, I just thought, why not ask a local if they want to make some extra money and drive us there. So that's what ended up happening. And yeah, Ajijic was stunning. It was the one where I had the sunset up on top of the hill, and we had a beautiful group dinner there the night before the wedding, and the wedding itself was stunning. They did some like traditional Mexican portions of the wedding, and then they had the Dutch side of the family there as well. So great group of people, like honestly, so lovely. But the accommodation we stayed in was so funny. Like, I literally could make an entire video about how weird the accommodation was. So unbeknownst to us, the bride and groom had like a slight altercation with the owners of this property like prior to staying there. So we walked in, and like they were already acting a little bit awkward, like they sort of didn't want us there. And it was called the Garden of Dreams, and we started to call it the Garden of Nightmares because the lady was just so rude, and I was like, I don't really understand. This place is not cheap. Like, I think it was $280 a night, and you're in some town in the middle of nowhere, and it was just so weird. So yeah, we had all these strange experiences. Like, we asked them to do our laundry, and they charged us for it, and then they gave back the clothes, and like half of them were dirty, and the rooms had like no aircon. The shower's really small. It was like quite run down, and I don't know, it just felt like a real life Faulty Towers or something. And then they had, and then this other owner just like appears out of nowhere, and then they're just hanging around the hotel all the time. But we had fully booked the hotel, so we kind of didn't really want them there because it was a little bit weird. Like, we would be trying to have like breakfast or a group chat or people sitting by the pool, and this lady was just like always there with her friggin' dog, and it was just so strange. And the dog was really loud as well, and it would just bark non-stop. So it was waking people up in the morning, like, I don't know, keeping people up at night. It was just a very, very bizarre experience. And then on the night of the wedding, she literally came up at 10 p.m. in her pajamas and was like yelling at us to turn the music down. And I was like, what is happening? This lady is so strange. Like, she's actually trying to sabotage their wedding. So it was a very, very odd experience, and I don't even know how that all ended. I think they probably left some negative reviews on TripAdvisor or something like that, but it was very, very funny and weird. And it's just one of those ones in hindsight where you're like, whatever. Like, what an odd place. But the town itself was stunning. It was full of like artwork. It kind of seemed like a elderly expat village. And I say that because when we went into the main square, there was just like a lot of Americans, I would say probably age like 70 and up. So I feel like they'd just gone there to retire and get some beautiful big houses by the lake, because it's a lovely location. It felt really safe. It's out in nature, and yeah, I mean, I guess it's super affordable. You can get lots of fresh fruit and vegetables at the farmers market. So it's a pretty good way of life if you wanted to just retire somewhere with some great sunny weather and just enjoy. So, I mean, they had salsa in the main square, and there was really sweet, like, I don't know, like cafes and stuff around. But obviously you cannot get a coffee like you can in Australia in Mexico or America. So that was that. But yeah, and then from there we ended up flying into New York. So obviously that was a pretty lengthy flight. So it was kind of like a big travel day there. We went via Dallas and then on to New York. And I flew a variety of American airlines when I was over there, from Alaska to JetBlue to Delta, and they're all pretty similar, to be honest. The number one thing I would say is like take snacks, because on the longer flight legs, I thought that they would have potentially given us a meal, but they don't. And there was hardly anything to purchase on the flight either. So that would normally not be a problem, right? Because you would just buy like a sandwich or a salad or something from them, but they just didn't even have that. So one flight Jazz and I had was like 6 hours, and all we had was like these little bags of pretzels that they gave us. So we felt like we were going to die when we got off at the other end, because we just hadn't eaten all day. But anyway, so yeah, I can't really comment on any of those. They were all completely fine. The only thing they do in America that's a little bit strange is you have to pay for your luggage at the airport. So just make sure that your bag is always like around 21 kilos for those internal flights, because Jazz's bag was a little bit heavy and he had to constantly tip it out and put things into my bag. So otherwise they'll overcharge you. But I think it was basically $30 per bag. So just factor that in when you're booking flights, because it's not really done all inclusive like the flights are here. So yeah, that was that. And then I think in terms of maybe that flight from like Mexico to America, it was probably like $450, which, considering how far it was, I would say that was a really cheap flight, and all of the internal flights in America was super cheap. So I was really grateful for that, because when you're kind of traveling around to different places, I think domestically it is a lot cheaper once you're in the country and you're just like moving around. It's just those big international flights that can be a little bit more taxing. So we went to New York and we stayed at a hotel called Modern House, and Modern House was beautiful, but I wouldn't say that it's worth the money, because it was quite literally $1,000 a night. And of course that's not my budget. Jazz was subsidizing part of that, and I do really appreciate it. But the rooftop bar was incredible, and the pool that's up there, and the gym was phenomenal. That's the one that had the insane city view of New York. But when we first checked in, our room was on level 4, and it was quite loud, because you're sort of like in Soho, which is like a very prominent part of New York. And so I asked them if they could like move us, because we'd actually paid for a city view room. So then we got put up on level 10, and that was better. But in terms of like the room fit out and where we had stayed prior in Brooklyn at the Hoxton, I would say the Hoxton any day. It had much nicer decor. It was way more modern. The rooms were smaller but really well appointed, and the general areas were just a lot nicer. So I understand the New York vibe kind of versus the Brooklyn vibe, but I just much preferred the brand the Hoxton. So if you're heading over anywhere to New York, Williamsburg, whatever, definitely look up the Hoxton, because yeah, it was much more affordable and I just honestly preferred it. I think it was more like $400 a night to $600 a night, and then the other one was $1,000. And don't get me wrong, I'm not thinking any of these are cheap, and I know there are cheaper options out there. I'm someone who has stayed in hostels my entire life and then just hotels every now and then. So this was the first trip that I've ever done where I've just kind of gone up that next level and stayed in a hotel, because I was traveling with a partner, and his budget is vastly different to mine because Jazz is an established businessman. So it sort of doesn't impact him as much as it would my personal decisions when I kind of book accommodations. So definitely just take that with a grain of salt. You certainly don't have to stay, you know, at the most expensive place to enjoy somewhere, because I know from experience that I've stayed, I think in 2014, I stayed at the Marriott on the Upper East Side, and it was really, really cheap. And all you have to do is just find the subway line and get the subway down, and you are having the same New York experience as everyone in the big fancy hotels. So just do it your way and to your budget, and don't worry about what anyone thinks. You don't need to post like a selfie from your accommodation so everyone thinks you're really great, because it just does not matter. Just go for personal comfort and what's in your budget. So that is my number one advice when it comes to things like that, because sometimes I have stayed, like I said, in these expensive hotels, and I've been pretty underwhelmed for the sheer amount of money that you're spending. So yeah, I can't say that I would recommend Soho House, even though the staff were amazing, just because it just kind of was average in my opinion. So yeah, and then after that we went to San Fran, which is where I went and saw my sister. So again, that's kind of like not really in San Fran where we stayed, because she lives sort of on the other side of the bridge. So you go Oakland when you cross the Golden Gate Bridge, and then you keep going, and she is in a town called Walnut Creek. So it's like much further across that side of the world. But it was so nice to meet baby Charlotte, her little girl, which I've popped a photo up on Instagram, but I'll put it here because I'm obsessed with her. She is so gorgeous. And when I first got to meet her, she was only 6 days old. So it was just incredible that the timing of the trip worked out. So we ended up booking an Airbnb, which was just some apartments. And again, it wasn't terribly cheap because the AUD to USD conversion is like horrible at the moment. But yeah, I mean, you can still do affordable like clothes shopping and stuff at places like Zara, if you want to pick things up along the way. But yeah, it just kind of depends on your appetite for like shopping versus sightseeing versus like special things to do. But we didn't sort of spend any money in that location, if that makes sense, because once you're with family, you're just sort of doing dinners and then hanging out. And we did go around to their house for a barbecue one day because I've never seen the house that they've purchased except via Zoom. So that was very cool. And my mum and dad had also flown over, so they were there as well. And I didn't film any of that, obviously, because it's just family time stuff. So yeah, that was that. And then Jazz and I went to Yosemite, and Yosemite was probably one of the most massive highlights of the entire trip. The park itself is just phenomenal. The first day we did the valley floor walks, and then after that we went and did the giant sequoia forest and things like that. And our accommodation was 10 out of 10. I highly recommend it if you are going to stay there. It is super close to the gate on Oak Flat Road, and it was called Rush Creek Lodge. So could not recommend it enough. It was beautiful accommodation. It had a pool, a hot tub, a gym, beautiful rooms with big barn doors, and heaps of facilities if you happen to have kids and things as well, in terms of like, of course my camera battery would die just as I'm trying to film the end of that. So that was very annoying. I've just got you on my phone now because I don't have time to charge the battery and then head off to the sauna appointment after this, because I've just been working all day, and that is why the camera battery is flat. So I'm really sorry about that. I will charge it, but that is pretty much a summary of it. I think we went to the Awani Hotel for dinner and it was $59 per person. But just remember in your brain when you're converting all of the USD to AUD kind of things that it's kind of 1.5 at the moment, which is pretty harsh, and it does make things very expensive. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's like the best time for Australians to be traveling to America, but in saying that, I bloody loved America. I totally forgot how great it was, and I just had such a good time there. It was so beautiful, really clean, really safe. People were so lovely and helpful. Every single place we went, I felt like people just wanted us to have the best time. And I just thought the towns had so much character, and the restaurants and places that you go are just enormous. Like, everything in America is bigger, and it is just so well serviced, and the wait staff and everything, I guess due to the tipping system, are extremely attentive. So we really enjoyed America. I just thought it was so beautiful. There was so much stuff to do, and I could have spent way more time there if I had the budget, but I do need to come back and work on my company. So that is that. But for now, I'm going to head off to this appointment, and then Jazz is going to come around for dinner.